Have you ever poured your entire soul into something? And I mean every late night, every skipped vacation, every ounce of passion and grit you possess. Horby and Navermon. That something was Aura Organics. It wasn't just a business. It was the physical manifestation of a dream I'd had since I was a teenager. Hand mixing clays and essential oils in my parents' kitchen. It was my baby. And like any proud parent, I thought my family was cheering me on from the sidelines. I thought they were proud. It turns out, they weren't watching me with pride. They were watching me like vultures, just waiting for the right moment to pick the bones clean. They say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that sometimes, blood is just the first thing to spill when money is on the table. This is the story of how my family tried to steal my life's work from me under the guise of love, and how they walked into a boardroom expecting to cash a check, only to find me at the head of the table, holding their eviction notice from my life. My name is Jordan, and for the better part of a decade, I was what you would politely call a workaholic. Impolitely, I was obsessed. Aura Organics started with a single handcrafted facial serum sold at a local farmer's market in Denver. I was the chemist, the marketer, the packer, and the delivery driver. I remember the thrill of my first online order, taping up the box in my tiny apartment, my hands shaking with a mixture of excitement and sheer terror. For years, that was my life. A cycle of formulating, testing, marketing, and reinvesting every single penny back into the business. While my friends were getting married and buying houses, I was negotiating with suppliers for bulk discounts on organic jojoba oil and spending weekends designing packaging. My company grew slowly at first, then all at once. We got a glowing review on a major beauty blog, then a mention in a national magazine. Suddenly, Aura Organics was a name. We were in boutique shops, then national health food chains, and finally we launched a flagship store in Cherry Creek. We were a success, a real, tangible, multi-million-dollar success, and my family, well, my family was there. My father, David, a man who had spent his life in middle management, viewed my success with a kind of baffled resentment. He never understood the digital marketplace, or the concept of brand loyalty. To him, I was just lucky, like I'd found a winning lottery ticket on the street. My mother, Eleanor, was the master of passive aggression. She'd praise my success to her friends at the country club, basking in the reflected glory. But to my face, her compliments always came with a little sting. "It's wonderful you're so successful, darling," she'd say. "But don't you think it's time you found a nice man and settled down? A boardroom is a lonely place for a woman." Then there were my siblings. My older brother, Marcus, was the golden child. He had the charm, the easy smile, and a trail of failed get-rich-quick schemes that I had been guilted into funding over the years. From a disastrous crypto venture to an ill-fated gourmet toast delivery service, Marcus was an expert at spending money, preferably mine. My younger sister, Chloe, was a follower. She drifted through life in Marcus's wake, echoing his opinions and my parents' sentiments, never forming a thought of her own. They all enjoyed the perks of my success, of course. I paid for my parents' mortgage after my dad's early retirement. I covered Marcus's rent more times than I could count. I bought Chloe her first car. I did it because, deep down, I still held on to that childish hope that my success could be our success, that it could knit us closer together. I was wrong. It just gave them a bigger target to aim at. The inciting incident, the moment the curtain was pulled back, happened on a Tuesday. I remember it was raining, a cold, miserable drizzle that matched the mood that was about to descend. I got a text from my mother, "Family meeting. Our house, 7 p.m., urgent." I sighed, my shoulders slumping. An urgent family meeting usually meant Marcus was in some new kind of trouble that required my checkbook. I finished my work, grabbed a sad desk salad for dinner, and drove to my parents' house, the one I was paying for. When I walked in, the air was thick and heavy, like a courtroom before the verdict is read. They were all there, sitting in the formal living room, a space reserved for Christmas and major announcements. David, my father, was in his big leather armchair, steepling his fingers like a low-budget movie villain. My mother sat on the sofa, dabbing at her dry eyes with a tissue. Marcus and Chloe were perched on either side of her, their faces masks of solemn, rehearsed concern. It was an ambush. It was an intervention. "Jordan, thank you for coming," my father began, his voice dripping with faux gravity. "We need to talk. We're worried about you." I almost laughed. Worried? About what? The quarterly reports are the best they've ever been. This isn't about the company, Jordan. Marcus cut in, his voice smooth as oil. This is about you. We see how you're running yourself into the ground. You're always tired. You look pale. You're burning out. Chloe nodded eagerly. You never come to family dinners anymore. And when you do, you're always on your phone. We miss you. It was a perfectly choreographed performance. Every line was designed to make me feel guilty, to frame my hard work as a pathology. They spoke of my passion as if it were an illness. They called my dedication a symptom of a deeper problem. My mother delivered the final tearful monologue. "We just want our daughter back," she whispered, clutching her tissue. "We've been so scared of losing you to this obsession." Then came the solution, their grand, loving gesture. My father slid a glossy brochure across the coffee table. It showed a serene mountain landscape, a beautiful modern cabin nestled among pine trees. The headline read, "The Summit Sanctuary. Unplug, unwind, reconnect." "We've booked you a retreat, sweetheart," my dad said, his voice swelling with performative generosity. "A full month. It's a digital detox facility up in the San Juan Mountains. No phones, no laptops, no stress, just fresh air, meditation, and healthy food. It's all taken care of. Our gift to you. A month. An entire month away from my company." The idea sent a jolt of pure panic through me. A month? I can't just disappear for a month. Who will run things? There are deals in motion. A new product launch. That's the other thing, Marcus said, pulling a sheaf of papers from a leather-bound folder. "We thought of that. This is a temporary power of attorney, just for the month you're gone. It will let Dad and me handle the day-to-day, pay the bills, make sure the lights stay on. It's purely logistical, a formality." I stared at the document, a power of attorney. It felt cold, heavy. A knot of suspicion tightened in my gut. This was too much, too fast, too neat. But I was so tired, bone-achingly tired. I looked at their faces, all staring at me with this suffocating, unified concern. A tiny, treacherous part of me wanted to believe them. It wanted to believe that this was an act of love, not a transaction. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was burning out. Maybe a month away was what I needed. The exhaustion was a powerful drug, clouding my judgment. "It's just to manage minor company logistics?" I asked, my voice small. "Of course," my father said, putting a comforting hand on my shoulder that felt more like a brand. "Just to keep the ship sailing smoothly, while our captain gets a much-needed rest. We love you, Jordan. We're doing this for you." Against every screaming instinct in my body, I picked up the pen. My signature felt like a betrayal of myself. But in that moment, the weight of their combined will was too much to fight. I was exhausted, outnumbered, and I let myself believe the lie because the truth was too monstrous to contemplate. I signed the papers. I agreed to go. And as I did, I saw a flicker of something in my brother's eyes. It wasn't concern. It was triumph. I should have listened to that instinct. I should have walked out right then and there. But I didn't. And that one moment of weakness would cost me almost everything. The journey to the so-called retreat was the first clue that something was deeply wrong. A black SUV, driven by a man who answered my questions with single-syllable grunts, picked me up a few days later. My family saw me off with a flurry of hugs and kisses that felt as synthetic as polyester. "You'll feel so much better," my mother chirped, squeezing my arm a little too tightly. "We'll take care of everything," my father boomed, his hand clapping my back in a gesture of false camaraderie. Marcus just smiled his slick, unreadable smile. As the SUV pulled away from the curb, I saw them standing on the porch, a perfect picture of a loving family, but the image felt like a photograph, with something sinister hiding in the shadows. We drove for hours, climbing out of Denver and deep into the heart of the Rocky Mountains. The urban sprawl gave way to sprawling ranches, then dense forests of aspen and pine. The farther we went, the more the silence in the car seemed to press in on me. The driver didn't play the radio. My phone, as per the detox rules, had been surrendered to my father for safekeeping. I was utterly disconnected, a passenger being ferried to an unknown destination by a complete stranger, on the authority of people I was beginning to suspect I didn't know at all. Finally, after turning off the main highway onto a gravel road, and then onto a barely there dirt track, we arrived. The cabin was exactly as it looked in the brochure, a stunning piece of modern architecture, all glass and cedar, perched on a hillside, overlooking a pristine valley. It was beautiful, but its beauty was cold, sterile. The driver unloaded my single suitcase onto the porch, handed me a key, and said, "Your family has stocked the pantry and fridge. Enjoy your stay." Then he got back in the SUV and drove away, his tires crunching on the gravel, until the sound faded into nothing, leaving me in a silence so profound it felt like a physical presence. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The interior was just as impressive. A huge stone fireplace, comfortable-looking furniture, a gourmet kitchen, but there was no welcome packet on the counter, no schedule of activities, no cheerful note from the staff. I called out, "Hello." My voice was swallowed by the high vaulted ceilings, the only reply a faint echo. I walked through the entire cabin, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a beautiful deck. No one. There was no staff. There was no one to lead a meditation session or a guided hike. There was no chef to prepare healthy meals. It wasn't a retreat. It was just a house, an empty, isolated house in the middle of nowhere. The panic started as a low hum in my chest and quickly escalated into a full-blown roar. I ran to the front door and fumbled with the lock. It was a standard deadbolt, not a prison, but when I stepped outside, the vast, indifferent wilderness, stretching in every direction, felt more confining than any locked room. The brochure had lied. My family had lied. This wasn't a sanctuary. It was a cage, a very beautiful, very remote cage. I frantically searched my pockets for the phone I knew wasn't there. I ran back inside and found the landline on the kitchen wall. I snatched the receiver. Dead. Of course it was dead. They had thought of everything. I was completely, utterly cut off. The first few days were a blur of disbelief and rising terror. I paced the confines of the cabin like a trapped animal. I shouted until I was hoarse, knowing no one could hear me. I ate the food they had left for me: expensive cheeses, artisanal breads, organic produce, and every bite tasted like ash, like the bitter fruit of their betrayal. At night, the silence was the worst part. It was an active, malevolent force, broken only by the creak of the house settling or the cry of some unseen animal in the woods. In that crushing silence, my mind had nothing to do but replay every memory, every interaction, every small, slight, and major betrayal that had led me to this point. The past came flooding back, not as a gentle stream of nostalgia, but as a tidal wave of painful clarity. I remembered being 16, my hands stained with bentonite clay and my heart pounding with excitement. I'd cornered my family in the kitchen, laying out my first hand-labeled jars of Jordan's Miracle Mud Mask. I explained my vision, talking a mile a minute about pH balances and natural preservatives. My father, David, didn't even look up from his newspaper. He just grunted. "Who would buy your mud pies, Jordy?" My brother Marcus, ever the cool older sibling, had smirked and said, "Yeah, good luck with that. Let me know when you're a millionaire." Their dismissal was a casual, thoughtless cruelty, a small wound that I had covered with a bandage of ambition. Now, in the silence of the cabin, that wound was ripped open and pouring salt into it. They had never believed in me. Not for a second. Then another memory surfaced, sharper and more recent. It was 3 years ago, Aura Organics was finally stable, finally profitable, and right on cue, Marcus appeared on my doorstep. His latest venture, a subscription box for ethically sourced dog toys that turned out to be cheap junk from a wholesaler, had imploded, leaving him with angry customers and a mountain of debt. He stood in my hallway, his usual charm replaced by a desperate, pleading energy. He'd spun a tale of bad luck and unforeseen circumstances, casting himself as the victim. "I just need 50,000, Jordy," he'd begged, his eyes welling up with crocodile tears. "Just a loan. To get back on my feet. I'll pay you back every cent, I swear." I knew I shouldn't. I knew it was throwing good money after bad. But he was my brother, so I wrote the check. He never paid back a dime. He never even said thank you. I hadn't been helping him. I had been enabling him. I was not his sister. I was his bank. The most painful memory, the one that made my stomach clench with shame, was the day I signed the power of attorney. It wasn't at the intervention. That was just the final step. The seed had been planted months earlier. My mother, Eleanor, had called me in a panic. A fake, manufactured panic, I now realized. She spoke of a minor health scare, a routine procedure she and my father needed, and how their lawyer had recommended they get their affairs in order. He said it would be so much simpler if we all had reciprocal POAs in place. "Darling," she'd said, her voice a fragile, manipulative tremor, "just in case. For emergencies, so we could pay your bills if you were ever in the hospital. You work so hard we worry." It was a masterpiece of emotional manipulation, playing on my guilt, my love, my deeply ingrained sense of responsibility for them. I'd gone to their lawyer's office, a stuffy room that smelled of old paper and deceit, and I had signed the document, believing it was an act of familial duty. They had been planning this for months, the burnout intervention, the retreat. It was all a carefully constructed stage play, and I was the unsuspecting lead. Days bled into a week. My panic subsided, replaced by a cold, heavy despair. I felt a grief so profound, it was physical, an ache in my bones for a family I realized I had never truly had. But then something shifted. I was rummaging through a drawer in the living room, looking for a book, anything to distract me, when I found a laminated topographic map of the area. My eyes scanned the swirling contour lines, the names of peaks and valleys, and then I saw it. A small, unassuming peak, about 5 or 6 miles away. The name was printed in small block letters, Signal Point. A flicker of something that felt dangerously like hope ignited in my chest. It was a long shot, a ridiculous, desperate long shot. But it was better than sitting here, waiting for my life to be dismantled. The next morning, I woke before dawn. I packed a bottle of water and the few protein bars I could find. The hike was brutal. The air was thin, and my body, accustomed to a desk and not a mountain, screamed in protest. I scrambled over loose rock, pushed through dense thickets of scrub oak, my lungs burning, my legs shaking. I was driven by a single furious thought: I will not let them win. After what felt like an eternity, I dragged myself onto the rocky summit of the peak. I was gasping, sweating, covered in scratches. I pulled out my personal cell phone, the one I'd cleverly hidden in the lining of my suitcase. A small act of defiance I hadn't even known was a survival instinct. I held it up to the sky, my hand trembling. For a moment nothing, no service, and then it flickered. One single glorious bar of LTE. It was like a dam breaking. A week's worth of notifications flooded the screen in a dizzying cascade. Texts, voicemails, and dozens of emails. My heart pounded against my ribs. I ignored the messages from my family. My eyes scanned the email subject lines, and my blood ran cold. Aegis Innovations Due Diligence Request. Aegis Innovations Data Room Access. FW Introductory Call with Aegis Innovations. Aegis Innovations, my shell corporation, and my secret fortress. My emergency brake. They were trying to sell my company to me. The sheer, breathtaking audacity of it. The colossal stupidity. It was almost comical. Then I saw a single encrypted message from a sender I knew well. Genevieve Sterling, my lawyer. The subject line was just 2 words. Call me. I stood on that windswept peak, the world sprawling out beneath me, and the full scope of their betrayal hit me with the force of a physical blow. The grief, the despair, it all burned away in a white-hot flash of fury. The woman who had hiked up this mountain was a victim. The woman who would hike down was an executioner. The tears that streamed down my face weren't from sadness anymore. They were from rage. A cold, clarifying, and wonderfully motivating rage. It wasn't about revenge, not when I signed the papers. It wasn't about revenge when I got in the car. But standing there, on that mountain, with the evidence of their treachery glowing in my hand, oh, it was about revenge now. I took a deep, steadying breath of the cold mountain air, and I called General Jordan. Oh, thank God. Are you okay? Where are you? Jen's voice was a lifeline, a shot of pure, unadulterated competence in a world that had gone insane. I'm on a mountain in the middle of nowhere, Jen, I said, my own voice sounding strange to me, scraped raw but eerily calm. But I'm fine, better than fine, actually. Tell me everything. They're doing it, Jordan. They're really doing it, she said, the anger simmering in her professional tone. David and Marcus invoked the POA a week ago. They walked into my office, proud as peacocks, and announced they were accepting a private acquisition offer for Aura Organics. They claimed you were on a sabbatical and had fully authorized them to act on your behalf. Let me guess, I said, a humorless laugh escaping my lips. The offer was from Aegis Innovations. There was a pause on the line. How did you know? Because I'm looking at the emails on my phone. They haven't been subtle. I sank down onto a cold, flat rock, the adrenaline of the hike giving way to a chilling focus. This is good, General. This is perfect. They have no idea what they've walked into. They're amateurs, Jordan. Arrogant, greedy amateurs, Jen confirmed. They handed me the POA document like it was the keys to the kingdom. I reviewed it, of course. It's broad. I'll give them that. Your mother's sob story about needing reciprocal estate planning documents was a clever bit of social engineering. It gives them control over your personal assets and your direct operational authority at Aura, but it doesn't touch the trust. The trust, the beautiful, wonderful, ironclad trust that was the heart of Aegis Innovations. I felt a surge of gratitude for the woman I had been 2 years ago, the paranoid, forward-thinking woman who had listened to her lawyer. It was a memory that came back to me now, not with the sting of trauma, but with the sweet relief of vindication. 2 years ago, a massive, soulless conglomerate had tried a hostile takeover of Aura. They'd tried to swallow us whole. It was a brutal, terrifying fight that I'd almost lost. After we'd finally fought them off, I'd sat in Jen's office, shaken and vulnerable. They'll be back, I had told her, staring out her high-rise window at the Denver skyline. Or someone else like them will. I built this from nothing. General, I can't let it be stolen by corporate raiders. That's when she had proposed the ultimate defense. Not just a poison pill, but a fortress. We created Aegis Innovations. On the surface, it was a simple holding company, but underneath, it was a masterpiece of legal architecture. Aegis was owned entirely by an anonymous, offshore trust, a trust whose sole beneficiary and trustee was me. The trust held a significant minority stake in Aura Organics, and most importantly, it held the right of first refusal on any potential sale of the company, a clause buried so deep in the corporate bylaws, in subsection 14, paragraph C, that you'd need a microscope and a law degree to find it. I knew my father and Marcus would never read that closely. They didn't care about the details. They only cared about the dollar signs. The power of attorney they wielded was a powerful weapon, but I had a nuke, and they had no idea it even existed. Okay, I said into the phone, my mind already racing, piecing together the strategy. First things first, you need to get me out of here, but it has to be quiet. They can't know I'm out. They have to believe I'm still up here, meditating on my navel and weaving baskets. Already on it, Jen said, and I could hear the faint sound of her typing. There's a private airfield in Telluride. I can have a helicopter pick you up from a clearing a few miles from your location tomorrow at 0800 sharp. It'll take you to the airfield, and a car will be waiting to drive you back to a secure location in Denver. Your family will be none the wiser. A helicopter. The sheer efficiency of it. The power. It was intoxicating. For the first time in a week, I felt a sense of control. Good. Now the plan. We don't stop this sale, General. We encourage it. We are going to be the most enthusiastic, cooperative buyers they have ever met. We let them think they're in charge, right up until the moment we pull the rug out from under them. I like it, Jen said, a hint of admiration in her voice. We use their own greed against them. What's our first move? We need eyes and ears inside the company, I said, my thoughts turning to my team, my real family. We need to activate our most valuable asset. That asset was Lena Petrova. Lena was my head of product research and development. But that title didn't do her justice. She was a brilliant chemist, a creative genius, and she'd been with me since the early days when our lab was a glorified closet. She was fiercely loyal and knew the soul of the company as well as I did. If my family was trying to dismantle my legacy, Lena would be the first person they'd see as a threat. Jen patched me through on a secure, encrypted line. When Lena picked up, her voice was tense. Hello? Lena, it's Jordan. The relief on the other end of the line was audible. A sharp, shaky exhale. Jordan, oh my God, are you all right? We've been so worried, your brother. This is a nightmare. I'm fine, Lena. I'm safe. But I need your help. I need you to be my ghost in the machine. What's happening there? It's exactly what you think, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Marcus is walking around like he's Steve Jobs, making pronouncements. Your father is installed in your office, holding board meetings with just the two of them. They're trying to get their hands on everything, especially the formulas for the new winter collection, the ones we've been working on for 6 months. They see them as the crown jewels of the sale. Of course they do, I muttered. That collection was our most innovative yet, projected to be our most profitable launch ever. Okay, Lena, here is what's going to happen. A company called Aegis Innovations is acquiring Aura. They are going to start a very, very thorough due diligence process. I need you to cooperate with them completely. I need you to give them everything they ask for. Do you understand? There was a moment of confused silence. Give them the formulas. Jordan, I can't do that. That's everything. That's your legacy. Lena, I said, my voice soft but firm. Aegis Innovations is me. The gasp was followed by a low whistle. Oh, you magnificent woman. You thought of this ahead of time. Paranoia is a gift, Lena. Now, listen carefully. I spent the next hour on that mountaintop, the wind whipping around me, laying out the entire plan. We would let the sale proceed. Aegis, with Jen as its public face, would play the part of a demanding, meticulous corporate buyer. We would use the due diligence process not just to gather information, but to transfer it. We would legally and systematically move all of Aura's critical assets, our intellectual property, our customer databases, our supplier contracts, our very soul into the secure legal fortress of Aegis. My family thought they were selling a golden goose. By the time they got to the signing table, they'd be lucky if they were selling a box of feathers. They were about to participate in the most comprehensive and cooperative heist of their own robbery in corporate history, and they were going to do it with big, greedy smiles on their faces. The following morning, I hiked to the clearing Jen had designated. Punctually at 8 a.m., the rhythmic whump-whump of rotor blades echoed through the valley. A sleek black helicopter descended from the sky like a Valkyrie coming to collect a fallen warrior. As it lifted off, I looked down one last time at the beautiful prison they had chosen for me. I felt no attachment, no nostalgia, only the cold, clean thrill of the hunt. They had wanted me to go away, and I had. The Jordan they knew, the dutiful daughter, the endless ATM, the tired workaholic, was gone forever, left behind in that silent cabin. The person returning to Denver was someone they had never met, and she was coming to collect. The silent takeover began with an email. It was a masterpiece of corporate intimidation, drafted by Jen and sent from her official Aegis Innovations email address. It landed in Marcus's inbox with the force of a cannonball. Attached was a due diligence checklist so vast and complex, it would make a seasoned mergers and acquisitions lawyer weep. It contained hundreds of requests, broken down into categories: financial, legal, operational, and intellectual property. It demanded everything from the last 10 years of audited financial statements to the employment contracts of every single staff member, down to the janitorial crew. It was designed to be overwhelming, a display of absolute power. Marcus, completely out of his depth, took the bait hook, line, and sinker. I could picture him reading it, his chest puffing out. This wasn't a simple sale. This was a big league corporate maneuver, and he was at the center of it. He forwarded the email to my father with a note that I'm sure was dripping with self-importance. "Dad, see below. This is how the big boys play. They're serious. Let's get them what they need, so we can get to the finish line." His first act as the self-appointed CEO was to call an all-hands meeting at Aura headquarters. Lena, my loyal ghost, gave me a full report. He stood before my team, the people whose salaries I paid, and announced the exciting new chapter for the company. He spun a narrative about a strategic partnership that would take Aura to the next level, a level he implied I had been unable to reach. He then instructed every department head to give the representatives from Aegis Innovations their full and unconditional cooperation. It was his biggest mistake. He thought he was demonstrating command. In reality, he was handing me the keys to his own undoing on a silver platter. The requests from Aegis started flowing. They were surgical, precise, and completely under my remote direction from a quiet corporate apartment Jen had secured for me in a different part of Denver. The first request was for a complete data migration. For the purposes of a secure and confidential review, Jen's email read, "Aegis Innovations requires a full backup of all company servers to be migrated to our secure encrypted data analysis cloud." Marcus, eager to appear competent and tech-savvy, immediately instructed our small IT department to comply. He had no idea he was ordering them to hand-deliver the entire company. Every formula, every customer list, every marketing plan, every financial record, directly to me. Lena played her part beautifully. She helped the IT team, pointing them to the most critical high-value servers. "Don't forget the R&D archives," she'd say, with an air of helpfulness. "The Aegis team will definitely want to see the new winter collection pipeline." She was a brilliant double agent, ensuring that the crown jewels were the first things to be packed into the digital moving van. While the data transfer was happening, Jen, playing the role of the tough negotiator, began her assault on the human element. She requested one-on-one video conferences with key personnel, citing the need for frank and confidential discussions about the transition. Marcus insisted on being present, but Jen coolly refused. "My clients insist on candor, Mr. Miller," she'd stated in an email that I had helped her draft. "Your presence could have a chilling effect on the conversation. It's non-negotiable." Backed into a corner and terrified of scuttling the deal, Marcus had to relent. Jen held virtual meetings with my chief financial officer, my head of marketing, and of course, Lena. The meetings were short and to the point. Jen would ask a few probing questions about their roles, and then, with a calm that was utterly unnerving, she would lay out the situation, revealing that Jordan was behind Aegis and was retaking control. She offered each of them a choice: resign from the current management of Aura Organics, effective immediately, and accept a lucrative consulting contract with Aegis Innovations, with a guarantee of a senior position in the restructured company, or they could stay and go down with the sinking ship that my father and brother were captaining. It wasn't a choice at all. They were my people. They had been loyal to me for years, and they despised what Marcus and my father were doing. One by one, they accepted. The fallout was immediate and glorious. The day after the video conferences, 3 envelopes landed on my father's desk in my office. The resignations of the CFO, the head of marketing, and the head of R&D. My father, David, stared at them, his face a mask of confusion. He called Marcus, who was out for a long lunch, probably already celebrating his imagined windfall. "What the hell is this?" my father had bellowed into the phone, according to Lena, who had accidentally been in the outer office when it happened. Our entire senior team just quit. All at once, Marcus's blustering confidence finally began to crack. What? That's impossible. I'll handle it. But there was nothing to handle. Their access cards were deactivated. Their company laptops were wiped remotely by an IT guy who was loyal to me. The brain trust of Aura Organics had vanished into thin air overnight. My father and Marcus were left standing in a company that was suddenly terrifyingly hollow. The panic began to set in, a slow, creeping dread. The money from the sale, which they had probably already spent a dozen times over in their heads, wasn't materializing as quickly as they'd hoped. The buyers were being far too meticulous. What's the holdup, Marcus? My father would demand daily. These people are picking us apart. Tell them to cut the check. Marcus, desperate to maintain the illusion of control, would offer weak reassurances. It's standard procedure, Dad. This is a big deal. They're just kicking the tires. They're very, very impressed with what they're seeing. I've got it under control. But he didn't. He was a puppet, and he was only just beginning to realize that someone else was pulling his strings. He was an empty suit in an empty office, presiding over a company whose most valuable assets were currently being cataloged and secured in a downtown apartment by its rightful owner. The silent takeover was almost complete. They just didn't know it yet. The exodus of my senior leadership team was the first tremor of the earthquake that was about to shatter my family's world. The day after their resignations, an official email went out from Human Resources, an email I had written and Lena had arranged to be sent. It announced that the 3 departed executives had been immediately retained as independent contractors by Aegis Innovations to ensure a smooth and seamless transition of institutional knowledge. The meaning was clear, even to my father's and Marcus's self-serving minds. I hadn't just taken my people, I had given them to the buyer. From their perspective, it looked like Aegis was gutting the company before they even owned it, and the very people they needed to manage the process were now working for the other side. The power had shifted so completely, so silently, that they were left blinking in the dark, wondering what had just happened. The first crack in their unified front came from my sister Chloe. She had always been the emotional weak link, and the pressure was getting to her. My phone, now my command center, buzzed with a call from a number I knew was hers. I let it go to voicemail. The message she left was a masterwork of manipulative, tear-soaked panic. Jordan, where are you? Her voice wavered, thick with manufactured distress. It's me, Chloe. You have to call us. This whole thing with the company, it's a mess. These Aegis people are horrible. They're trying to steal the company, I think. They're tearing it apart. Marcus is in over his head, and Dad is so stressed. We were just trying to help you, to save the company for you, and now it's all falling apart. You have to come back. You have to fix this. I listened to the message, in my face impassive. A year ago, that message would have twisted me into knots of guilt, and that I would have dropped everything and run to their rescue. But the woman who listened to it now just felt a profound, weary sadness. Hinoain fortaderi, hinzirilideri, hin madam saying. They had set a fire and were now crying because they were getting burned, demanding the person they'd thrown into the flames come back and put it out for them. I deleted the voicemail without a second thought. The age of me fixing their problems was over. My father and Marcus, meanwhile, tried a different, more aggressive tactic. They decided to take their frustrations out on the negotiator. Marcus scheduled a call with Jen, and according to the recording Jen made, he spent the first 10 minutes trying to project an air of authority that he simply didn't possess. Then he moved on to slandering me. Look, I'm going to be frank with you, Marcus had said, his voice oozing false sincerity. The previous management, my sister, she was a great founder, but she was completely unfocused. A classic case of a creative who couldn't handle the pressures of a real business. We, my father and I, were providing the necessary adult supervision to get this company ready for a sale. We're cleaning up her mess, essentially. From my apartment, listening in on the call live, I had to cover my mouth to keep from laughing out loud. Jen's response was a chillingly neutral, I see. Thank you for that context. I have noted it in the file. She didn't defend me. She didn't argue. She just let him hang himself with his own rope, and every slanderous word he spoke was another nail in his own coffin. Their desperation reached a fever pitch when they attempted their most audacious move yet. They tried to renegotiate the price upward. Marcus sent an email claiming that due to the significant and unforeseen complexities of the transition and the extensive executive-level support he and my father were providing, they were increasing the asking price by 20%. It was a bluff born of pure panic. They were hemorrhaging control and thought they could bully their way into a bigger payout. I instructed Jen to reply immediately. Her response was 2 sentences long. We do not agree to your revised terms. We are hereby withdrawing our offer and ceasing all due diligence activities, effective immediately. The silence that followed that email must have been deafening. They had overplayed their hand so badly it was almost tragic. Less than an hour later, a frantic email from Marcus landed in Jen's inbox. It was stripped of all arrogance, all pretense. It was the naked, pleading message of a man who saw millions of dollars vanishing before his eyes. Please disregard my previous email, it read. It was sent in error. We accept your original offer and terms without condition. Please, let's move forward with the signing. We are ready to finalize this as soon as possible. I had them. Their greed was a leash, and I had just given it a sharp, painful yank. They were now so desperate to get the deal done, to get their hands on the money they felt they were owed, that they would agree to anything. All right, Jen, I said, a cold sense of finality settling over me. Let's give them what they want. Schedule the final signing. A top-floor boardroom at the fanciest law firm you can find. Let them have their moment of triumph. Let them walk into that room believing they've won. It will make the fall that much harder. The date was set. Friday, at 10 a.m. The culmination of their grand betrayal. The end of my old life, and the beginning of my new one. They thought they were about to be rich. They had no idea they were about to be retired. The day of the signing dawned bright and clear, a perfect autumn morning in Denver. I chose my outfit with the care of a general preparing for a decisive battle. A tailored suit in a deep charcoal gray, a crisp white silk blouse. It was armor. It was a statement. I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger I was finally getting to know. The exhaustion was gone from my eyes, replaced by a calm, sharp clarity. There were no more shadows of doubt. There was only purpose. The meeting was scheduled at the law offices of a prestigious firm downtown, a place with acres of marble, polished mahogany, and panoramic views of the mountains. It was a cathedral of power, designed to make people feel small. I knew my family would love it. They would feel like they finally belonged. I arrived an hour early, taking a private elevator directly to the top floor. Jen was waiting for me. The stage is set, she said, handing me a leather portfolio. Are you ready for this? I was born ready for this, Jen, I replied, and it was the truest thing I'd ever said. They just didn't know it. The boardroom was magnificent. A long, gleaming table reflected the city skyline like a dark mirror. At the head of the table, facing the door, was a single high-backed leather executive chair. I sat down, placing my portfolio squarely in front of me. Jen took a seat to my right. We waited. At precisely 10 a.m., the boardroom doors opened, and in they walked. My family. David, my father, was beaming, his chest puffed out in a new suit. Eleanor, my mother, was dressed to the nines, a triumphant, predatory glint in her eyes. Chloe trailed behind them, looking nervous but excited. And then came Marcus, the conquering hero, carrying a briefcase and wearing a smile so smug, it was practically a physical object. They saw the two figures at the end of the table, but from that distance, with the bright morning light silhouetting us, they couldn't make out our faces. They just saw power. "Good morning," my father boomed, striding confidently toward the table. "David Miller, and this is my son, Marcus. We're here to finalize the acquisition of Aura Organics on behalf of the owner." They came closer, their smiles beginning to falter as their eyes adjusted to the light. I saw the exact moment of recognition on my father's face. His smile didn't just disappear, it collapsed. His ruddy complexion went a pale, sickly white. Eleanor gasped, a sharp, theatrical sound, her hand flying to her pearl necklace. Chloe froze mid-step, her eyes wide with terror, and Marcus just stared, his jaw hanging open, the smugness vaporizing into pure, slack-jawed shock. The briefcase slipped from his nerveless fingers and hit the plush carpet with a dull thud. I let the silence hang in the air for a long, delicious moment, watching the full reality of the situation crash down upon them. Then I gave them a small, tight smile. "Hello, family," I said, my voice even and cold as ice. "Please, have a seat. You weren't expecting me, I take it. I am the president and sole owner of Aegis Innovations. I believe you're here to sell me my own company." They stumbled into the chairs opposite me, moving like automatons. None of them could speak. They just stared, their faces a gallery of disbelief and horror. "I have to hand it to you," I continued, my voice conversational, yet cutting. It was a bold plan. The intervention, the concern for my burnout, the fake retreat, leaving me isolated in a cabin with no communication while you attempted to liquidate my life's work. It was thorough. My father found his voice first, a strangled, sputtering rage. "You, how? The power of attorney. The power of attorney." I glanced at Jen, who gave a slight nod. "Oh, that was cancelled the moment my helicopter landed in Denver 3 weeks ago. It was a powerful tool, I'll grant you. It gave you the authority to talk to my lawyer. It gave you the authority to gather documents. It gave you the authority to walk right into my trap. Thank you for that." I slid the leather portfolios across the table toward them. "Please, take a look at the documents in front of you. These are the only papers that will be signed today." With trembling hands, Marcus opened his. His face, if possible, grew even paler. My father snatched the papers from him. They weren't acquisition agreements. They were termination documents, resolutions passed by the new parent company, Aegis Innovations, formally removing David and Marcus Miller from their self-appointed and entirely fictional board positions. There were notifications of a full financial audit to investigate potential fraud committed during their brief tenure. And tucked neatly at the back was a copy of a restraining order, legally barring all four of them from entering any Aura Organics property or contacting any of its employees. "You don't understand," my mother whispered, her voice cracking. "We did this for you, Jordan. We were protecting the family legacy. My legacy." I finally let the cold fury I had been holding back leak into my voice. "You left me on a mountain. You tried to steal my company, the one thing I have built by myself, for myself. The one thing that paid for your house, your cars, your entire lifestyle. You didn't do this for me. You did this because you are weak and greedy, and you could not stand to see me succeed on my own terms. You mistook my patience for permission. You mistook my generosity for weakness. That ends today." I stood up, my presence filling the room. "It wasn't about revenge when I found out. It was about survival. But you made it about revenge. Every lie you told, every dollar you tried to steal. So let's talk about your compensation for all your hard work." I pushed one final document toward them. "As of this morning, I have established a new family trust in your names. It's been funded. It will deposit exactly $1 into your bank account on the 1st of every month, for the rest of your lives. A small recurring reminder of the exact value you placed on my work, my trust, and my love. Now get out of my boardroom." The aftermath was exactly as chaotic as you might imagine. My mother started to sob. Not tears of remorse. Scenarios at Furple, Sadiv Ake furiously only seen in cartoons. And he began to shout, threatening lawsuits and ruin. Marcus just sat there, broken, a hollowed-out shell of the golden boy he had always pretended to be. Chloe was a mess, alternating between pleading with me and glaring at Marcus. It was the ugly, pathetic sound of a collapsing dynasty. I didn't say another word. I just waited, and eventually, the law firm's security guards, alerted by Jen, came in and politely but firmly escorted my former family out of the building. As the doors closed behind them, a profound silence settled over the room. It wasn't the empty, terrifying silence of the cabin. It was the clean, quiet, and beautiful sound of peace. In the months that followed, I rebuilt. Aura Organics officially became a wholly owned subsidiary of Aegis Innovations, shielding it from any future external or internal threats. I promoted Lena to Chief Operating Officer, and together with the rest of my loyal team, we not only recovered, we soared. The winter collection we launched was a phenomenal success, shattering every sales record we had. I was working hard again, but it was different. It was joyful. The obsession that my family had called a sickness was in fact my passion, and without their toxic presence draining it, it was brighter than ever. As for my family, they faced the natural consequences of their actions. The restraining order held. The financial audit I initiated uncovered enough evidence of Marcus's shady dealings that he ended up facing a series of very real, very serious legal troubles. Deprived of my financial support, my parents were forced to sell their big house and downsize to a small apartment they could actually afford. Their social standing, which my mother had prized above all else, evaporated. People don't tend to invite you to country club galas when your son is in the business section of the paper, for all the wrong reasons. They got exactly what they deserved. The universe has a funny way of balancing the books. And what about me? I'd be lying if I said it was a purely happy ending. There is a grief that comes with amputating a part of your own life. Even if that part was diseased, they were still my family. I had to mourn the idea of them, the family I thought I had. Or at least the one I had always hoped for. But what I gained in return was something far more valuable: freedom. The freedom to build my life and my business without guilt, without resentment, without the constant draining weight of their entitlement. I've learned that sometimes, the people who are supposed to be your biggest supporters can become your heaviest anchors. And cutting them loose doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've finally chosen to swim. You have to learn to be your own champion, to build your own fortress, and to trust your own instincts, especially when they're screaming at you that something is wrong. Family should be your safe harbor, not the pirates who try to sink your ship. And if they turn out to be pirates, you have every right to defend your treasure and to sail on without them toward a horizon of your own making. So that's my story. It was the hardest and best thing I have ever done. Now I have to ask you, what would you have done in my position? Would you have been as cold and calculating, or would you have found a way to forgive them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one. And if you've ever had a story of your own, where you had to choose between your own well-being and a toxic family dynamic, I'd be honored if you shared it. There is strength in knowing you're not alone. If you found this story compelling, please give it a like. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this, and be sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you for listening.